What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 10. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Today, we're not quite at full strength with our normal host, Roger, is out tonight, so I'll be taking over hosting duties for tonight's podcast. We'll talk about the West Virginia loss and that whole debacle, preview the Cincy game, and we'll also have a special guest tonight to preview UCF basketball. But first, let's introduce the team. I'm going to bring in Mr. Trey Neal. How are you?
What's up, man? How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing good, thank you. Next up, I'm going to bring in our favorite Josh Lazar. How are you?
I'm doing good. Let's get up the enthusiasm here, right? Let's do it. This is Rogerless Day. I love this.
Don't tell him you said that, although he's going to see this.
I already told him I had some stuff for him. It's all good, though. It's all in love. It's great to be here.
Yep. And then finally, we have our special guest, Mr. Ben Stout. How are you, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks y'all for having me. I appreciate it. It's exciting to come on this show with you guys and talk a little hoops.
Absolutely. And for anyone that doesn't know Ben, he's a former UCF basketball player, played center for the Knights back in the early 2000s when UCF was part of the Atlantic Sun. Since his playing days has ended, Ben has provided color commentary for outlets such as ESPN, and he's also co-hosted the UCF Nightline podcast, which are friends of the show. So thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, let's get into it. Obviously, UCF basketball is just about a week away from starting. They start off their season with Florida International on November 6th. And it's a big year of transition for UCF basketball. Obviously, their first year in the Big 12, which is arguably the best basketball conference in the country. So we already know they kind of struggled even in the American, and now they're going to be playing some real heavy hitters, a lot of past national champions like Kansas and Baylor. So, it's going to be tough for them. But, Johnny Dawkins is trying to put together a good team. A lot of transfers, a lot of guys left. Obviously, Taylor Hendricks went off to the NBA, to the Jazz. So, Ben, what are your expectations for UCF basketball this year? Should we have any expectations, or is it just try to get better a little bit?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a tough season, right? I mean you just said it. We're joining the best, statistically and almost objectively the best basketball conference in America. It's been rated the best basketball conference in America, like 8 out of the last 10 seasons or something like that. I mean the Big 12 is just. I mean we're having a tough time introducing to the conference in football this year, but it's certainly expected that the road in the Big 12 is going to be a very difficult one for UCF. I mean, we had an up and down season last year. Certainly started off pretty well in the non-conference, and once we got into the meat of the conference schedule, we got a few injuries here and there. It was a tough season overall in our last season in the American, and then so we go from a conference that in their best years would get maybe 3 bids to the NCAA tournament to a conference in the Big 12, and this is where the opportunity lies in the future, and hopefully even in the near future. But where the opportunity lies in being in a conference that is that competitive nationally is that you go from that to, if you just have a winning record in conference, you have a very good chance. I mean, a very good chance of being an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. So there's kind of two sides to that coin. The competition is going to be extremely fierce, but the kind of upside to that is a number of things. What I just mentioned there with being able to have some success and you could reach the postseason. And also it helps in many other things. Obviously, recruiting is a big deal, and it's something that we need to continue to pick up on. We've had some success over the last couple of years with that, as you mentioned, Taylor Hendricks. But Yes, it's going to be a very tough season. We're picked to finish last by all the experts in the in conference. I mean, almost they weren't unanimous on who would win the conference, but it seemed to be pretty unanimous on who would be the 14th team in the conference. And so I'm sure Johnny Dawkins and the team has kind of looking at that as only go up from here and try to make some noise this year in our first year in the Big 12.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good preview. You talk a little bit about recruiting, and you think the Big 12 label would, really boost the recruiting. But, looking at the Knights 23 class, it seems like they only signed, one guy out of high school, a 3-star recruit. And then, when we have 6 transfers, which obviously in today's, college athletic world, a lot of teams are relying on transfers. But are you surprised there hasn't been a bigger boost to recruiting? I mean, just because Big 12 basketball, I mean, that's even better than Big 12 football. So you would think a lot of guys would want to, play in a conference like that. Or, did Johnny focus on transfers just because of all the depth and all the talent that we lost from last year's team?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a tough year recruiting wise as far as the high school recruiting goes. We were able to keep, or I should say, sign and keep Kome. I was promising myself I was going to listen to this little. I was going to listen to the little thing on how to say his name today, and I just got caught up and I didn't say it. So Kome, you know him. And he looks like he's going to be a very promising freshman, but he was supposed to be part of a three-player class that was going to come in here. Another player out of Indiana named Joey Grant that wound up going to another school kind of last minute, kind of decommitted last minute. And another player that's out of Montverde Academy here who also had a very tough name to say, a lot of talent there that decided to go to another school. Now that's on the high school side, but we did get 2 international players that are high school age essentially that have been playing high level basketball overseas. And so there's some talent coming in from the freshman class there as well that are trying to make a name for himself. I think Kome is going to be a guy that's going to certainly contribute to this team. But you're right when you say that we are going to rely on transfers this year. And Johnny was able to. He's shown that he's been able to play that game pretty well over the last few years. I mean, some of our top contributors have been transfers. When you look at guys like Darius Perry in the past and some others. I mean, we've even Terrell Allen and Colin Smith in the the great year in 2019 there. I mean, those are 2 transfers that Johnny Dawkins came in, and who could forget his son as well. So bringing in those guys as transfers has certainly shown some success in the past. And we've got a roster of them this year that are all coming in here trying to contribute, and I think we're going to see some big minutes from a good amount of them. And also we didn't just get players that had been in, maybe they were a freshman and transferred after their freshman year. I mean, we're getting 5th-year guys, we're getting seniors, we're getting juniors that have played high-level basketball for a number of years, and so hopefully we can rely, and we can go through them, but certainly, hopefully we can rely on them bringing that experience in, especially ACC basketball with DeMar Langford and a few others, and big-time college basketball, and bringing that experience into our team when they're first year in the Big 12.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Josh, Trey, you got any questions?
No quick questions, but it's Kome and Mobo. Kome
and Mobo. There you go. Thank you.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, as soon as he goes on Twitter or X or whatever we call it, like, come on, Ben needs to know it. Kome.
I know. I'm sorry, Kome. I apologize.
Listen. Spoiler alert, that's why you mute your mic and ensure that it's right and then come back on the podcast. But you got to do that for. Well, I guess, Ben, how about this? So if I'm correct, you're one of you played in 2000 about 3 to 2004. Is that right?
That's right. In that time frame, I was on we had back in the early 2000s. We had back-to-back conference championship teams, and I was a part of that first team. Yeah, in 03-04. Yep.
So we're about 20 years past the 03-04 season. Yeah, we know I was.
Yeah,
that's
right.
I was
that's
going,
right.
I was going to school there too, right? So here's a question. What experiences do you remember coming into those type of seasons, and what might the team now be feeling or thinking about? Less than a week away. I think November 6th is our first game. Moving on forward to a season with some uncertainty, although you probably have less of that. What does that feel like for an athlete, and how can our listeners kind of understand what that feels like from a former athlete?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I mean, I started at UCF in 02, and so I came in. I redshirted my first year, and we had a very good team, a 20-win team, and 21-win, I believe, in 02-03 season. And we had some seniors that left that team, but coming in, I came in with a number of guys that came in for the first time at UCF in their junior year. So we had some junior college transfers. Plenty of UCF fans will know names like Dexter Lyons and Roberto Morantine, and these are guys that came in my freshman year as juniors. Rob Ross is another great name.
Oh yeah.
We came in my freshman year, they were juniors. So going into my sophomore year, or I guess my redshirt freshman year, and their senior year, we knew going into that season that we were going to have a special team. And one of the things that Coach Dawkins talked about in his press conference, kind of previewing the season, is the amount of chemistry that these guys have gained right away. It seems like they do have a special bond, even though they're all coming together from different places. A lot of these guys, played high school ball in Florida in general. I mean, they're probably familiar with each other and from that time. But also, sometimes you find a special combination of personalities, and I think they developed that in their time overseas, in the tournaments that they played in this past summer, and the time they got to go to I guess it was Italy, I believe, but they were able to go over to Europe and spend some time together. And not the entire team was together, but most of the team was, and I think they created a special bond there. And the reason why I bring that up in that context of your question is because that going into that year, which wound up being a very special year, broke the school record for wins, win streak, I should say. We had 14 wins in a row. Went to the NCAA tournament, won our conference, and all of that. It was just a very special year. But going into that season, Coach Spira at the time, but all of us really felt it, is that we felt a really high level of chemistry, togetherness. And we knew that we had the right pieces in place. Maybe not a bunch of individual players that were spectacular, but all of us together could certainly do something special. And obviously, all of us UCF fans hope that is the same combination that we see in front of us with these transfers who have come in. But that was something that it seemed like a few times in Johnny Dawkins' press conference that he made a point to say that the chemistry has sparked faster than he's ever seen with some of the teams that he's put together, which is high praise, considering that as we just talked about, he's relied on some transfers in the past.
I was about to say, I'm looking back at that team, and I know Dexter and Roberto, but I mean, Gary Johnson and Marcus Avant and Josh Pep, that was a stacked team.
Yeah. Josh was a freshman there, and Gary Johnson it was on that particular team. I remember even Coach asking me at the end of the season what I thought was the reason why we were successful, and I mentioned all those things that I just mentioned, chemistry and we really loved each other on and off the court, and it was just it showed. We were very much together. But then I kind of stopped myself and I said, and Gary Johnson.
Yeah, I was about to say, didn't he go off in that Pitt game? If I remember, he dropped. I'm not even looking this up. I thought he dropped like 20 or 20, like some ridiculous number. I think it was. I think it was him.
He really shined in the following year when he was a senior, because he was a junior that year. But when we went against UConn in 2005, he just blew up and he had a bunch of threes. But that whole season he was amazing. But when he came in as a junior, he was somebody who had, honestly, from freshman year of high school to the 2 years in junior college, he had lost like 2 games in his basketball career. And he brought that type of winning mentality to our team. He's the best point guard by far I've ever played with. And yeah, Gary's something special. And there's a reason why he played overseas for as long as he did, along with Josh and Dexter and Roberto as well. And we had Josh Bodden on that team, which was just a huge senior leader for us. He was my roommate on the road. Josh, Troy Lindbeck, Will Bakanowski, they were all in my wedding. And so we got a huge group text of UCF basketball, family that all those guys are on, and we communicate all the time. So we're really, it's good to be part of that brotherhood.
So that would be, we have a text talk thing here. It'd be amazing to see some of the text talks between different basketball players. But
I'll give you a little insight of that. Just a small one. It's,
okay.
On Thursday night, they're doing a thing at the arena. It's like a celebrity, kind of game, to preview the season. And MOD has been trying to, Mike O'Donnell has been trying to get us to join that, and all of us have just leaving him. We're like hanging about to dry. Like Jermaine Taylor's got his back, but Jermaine Taylor also played in the NBA. So
I'm about to say, Troy Lindbeck
good luck
versus MOD.
To you and your knees, Mike.
I'm about to say MOD and Troy Lindbeck in a 3-point contest would probably, Troy still has to be able to hit him. I mean that you don't.
Yeah, he can, but you just got to ask him. I mean, he's the best player ever. I mean, you just got to ask him. He'll tell you.
So getting a little back to this current season, could you talk a little bit about some of the senior leadership that might be coming back, CJ Walker and some of the others? What is that going to feel like? From your experience, from your perspective on this team, because I know there's a couple of freshmen and transfers coming in, but I feel like the seniors or at least those who've been here a couple of years are really going to potentially pull the team forward as they need to be.
Yeah, I think certainly CJ Walker has got to be chomping at the bit. I know he's chomping at the bit to get out there. I mean, it was a disappointing injury that he had last year, and it looked like he was just going to start to take off there from an injury that he had the previous year, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy since he's been at UCF, at least consistently, and I know that's a big disappointment to him, but from all accounts, it seems like he is not only very much healthy and back at it. He said he's got the 45-inch vertical that he's ready to debut. But that type of struggle that he deals with, or that he has dealt with here at UCF, just having to, fight his way back from an injury, and then you get injured again, and that struggle that he has to personally deal with, I think, is going to help him in the leadership standpoint. I know that him being on the sideline and sitting next to the assistant coaches and really learning while he's trying to rehab outside of the games and everything, I think that has probably made him a more well-rounded athlete in general, as far as giving him the ability to really understand the game, not only understand the game, which he's played his whole life, but certainly understanding exactly what Coach Dawkins is trying to get out of this team. And so I think he can really carry that through. And the other guy that, as far as has been here for a while, he's a junior, but he's been here for a while, and is somebody who we're all really looking to take a big step forward. I know Coach Dawkins included, is Darius Johnson.
Yeah.
He's our point guard. He's going to be our starting point guard, I would imagine. I would be surprised if even some of these talented guards were to take that spot from him in the beginning of the season. He is going to be our upperclassman, our point guard leader. He's going to be the extension of Coach Dawkins on the court. And I know that that's what Coach Dawkins is looking for from him, and continuing to, develop that. He showed signs, even as a freshman, that he could step into that role and be a leader on this team. I mean, I think that he was, he's been a vocal leader since day one. Last season, he certainly stepped into that role 100%. He was the leader on the team, and he had to be. But I feel like last season, from a basketball standpoint, he would probably say this, that especially when it came to outside shooting, he needed to improve on that. And so I'm hoping that over the off season, it's been a point of emphasis for him, really improving his outside shot. All young players, you want them to be able to put arc on your shot and give it the best chance possible. But it's you'd almost like him to take a little bit of that arc off of his shot. He almost seems to do too much of a rainbow where he doesn't quite give himself the best chance to get it in there. But I'd like him to be better in his decision making in regards to shot selection. I'm not terribly worried about his decision making in regards to assist and getting his teammates involved. But I'd like to see him show improvement in his shot selection, and that's what I mean from a decision making standpoint. I think that he can, if he takes better shots, maybe tries to really get his teammates involved early on in the game, and then figure out ways to get himself involved as far as shooting goes later in the game. That might be a winning formula for us. And then one thing that I'll say that he does really well, has since his freshman year, is getting into the paint and creating for himself, driving through contact and finishing through contact, or getting his teammates involved. I feel like that's a part of Johnny Dawkins' offense that hasn't been totally utilized since BJ Taylor was here, is the ability to these big, strong guards that we have, Darius Johnson included, and we've got a few of those guards coming in. Shamari Allen is one that is excellent off the dribble and taking it into the rack, and so I'm hoping that Darius Johnson can really carry that part of his game through, where he can get into the paint and draw attention to himself, dish off to these guys like Omar Payne that can just dunk the ball, and take that pass and dunk it through. And so that's what I'm looking to see out of this offense a little bit more with Darius Johnson at the helm.
Excellent. And yeah, thanks for that. It's really interesting to hear that perspective from someone who might know just a little bit more about the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I mean, you mentioned it. There's 6 or 7 transferred. I mean, I know the names, but certainly had to look up a lot of YouTube highlights to make sure I knew who the players were. And I think that each of them provides something different for this team. Even Coach Dawkins mentioned it in his press conference about how it seems like this season, as opposed to maybe the last couple of years where we've had a little bit of positionless basketball, a little bit of kind of like, I don't know where, players essentially slot in their role. They got to figure out their role. It seems like each of these players, these transfers, have been brought in, and kind of Dawkins and his staff has built this team because they all are pieces to the puzzle that kind of provide something a little different. And so hopefully it's a winning combination.
Trey, I know you had a couple questions.
Yep. So you answered one of them. So I guess, Ben, what I want to know is, we've talked about on here, before the season, what's the formula for UCF football going into the Big 12? Like, what's going to make us successful?
Yeah.
Even this year to the future. What would that be for basketball? Like, as far as recruiting, as far as play style, everything. What do you think that would be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Certainly, we gotta kind of go through our growing pains this season, but and this is maybe similar to football in the sense that we all know that the future is going to be bright when it comes to recruiting. I mean, it's just we live in a state that is blessed with athletes, and an area that's blessed with athletes, and that's not exclusive to the football field. That's not exclusive to the volleyball court. It certainly is a lot of, high level basketball in this area, in this state especially, but certainly in this area as well. And so the hope is that with the Big 12 entry and some success this year, the recruiting just continues to step up. I mean, like I said, when it came to high school recruiting, it really did look like it was going to be something special this season, and we had a couple players drop off, but we were able to keep the right players and gain a few others. And so I think the recruiting is the number one thing, but and this is maybe football certainly, as we always say, it drives the ship, right? I mean, it's the number one moneymaker, and so therefore it should gain the most resources as well, or commit the most resources as well. And I don't want to necessarily use this as a kind of a broken record or an excuse, but we know the reality is that our investment in our basketball program has to increase. It's just the way it goes. I mean, we've sold more season tickets than we ever have, and that obviously has a lot to do with the when you got teams like the number one team in the country, Kansas, coming into town. It's not too hard to sell tickets. That being said, so we've got some resources coming in where we got season ticket holders more than we've ever had. We need more of them. But I think just the commitment to the funds, whether it be extension of the NIL programs to more basketball players and attracting more high level basketball players, but also the little things like we charter flights for every game, right? Not just certain games. Upgrades to the locker room, upgrades to the weight room. There's things that can be committed to basketball that make a difference in the overall scheme of things when you're talking about playing in the best conference in college basketball. I mean, you've got to compete on every front, not just the basketball court, not just the practice court, but every front. And so before, or as that hopefully continues to rise, our success as a program continues to rise, and our expectations rise with it, and everything can happen that way. But I think that because of the great success of the football program, and then of course our first NCAA tournament win in 2019, and on the basketball side, and we had that great special year with that, just really good team, maybe inarguably the best basketball team we ever had in 2019. The expectations just went through the roof, right? But the the commitments on the financial side didn't really line up with that. They didn't. And that's the reason why the last few years we've just kind of been in the middle. And I know that Dawkins, feels that he's got to try to, make the most of the situation. And I think that while UCF fans aren't, are kind of back and forth on Dawkins and, half in the camp, half out, which I understand why. I mean, we've had kind of up and down years. But I think that everyone who has played for him, or knows him as a person, really understands what he brings to the table and how he's trying to build this program in the right way. And hopefully we continue to see some fruits of that labor, and can put together some special years here. Don't know if it's going to be this year. I hope we're going to exceed expectations. But like we talked about, we've got a tough introduction to this conference. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Ben. And my biggest thing, I've said that for years, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, is that UCF just hasn't made an investment in the basketball program like they have the football program, or really just it's been lacking for a long time. And you've obviously seen that in the results. But, there has to be more resources and more money and the recruiting and everything, but is there even a path to just kind of some consistency? Like we've seen UCF make the tournament in 05 and then it goes 15 years before they make the big dance again. And, they're not putting out NBA players that frequently. They never won a conference championship in CUSA or the American. I think the best they ever finished was like third place in 2019. I mean, is there even a path now that we're even moving to the Big 12 to at least just have some consistency as far as like above 500 seasons, maybe making the tournament like one out every 4 or 5 years? Or is it going to have to take that just wholesale like investment into the program or maybe even a fresh coaching staff? Or is it just like, hey, once the resources start to line up, then we'll see that consistency? Or is it really not a path without that?
Well, I mean, I think with anything, it kind of you got to define consistency, right? A little bit. I mean, Dawkins has had, I think it's something like maybe, almost all of his seasons have been winning seasons, but they've been disappointments at the end of the day. A lot of them, even the winning seasons, have been disappointments, because, a lot of the times it's tough because we start out hot in the non-conference,
sub 500 in the conference,
right? And it's just that it's certainly not winning seasons in the American, right? Like we were sub 500 in the conference, and then after starting off hot and the expectations go through the roof, and then all of a sudden it's just a downfall. And I think that's been one of the justified main beefs that some of the fans have had with Coach Dawkins. It's just the teams aren't remaining consistent throughout the entire season, as you mentioned it. And one of the things that has hurt us, and there's it sounds like an excuse, but certainly every season we've had a major injury to our starting lineup or somebody in our starting lineup. And that's kind of an excuse at the end of the day, because every team has to deal with injuries. But we've had some devastating things. I mean, we talked so much about 2019. That was supposed to be a back-to-back NCAA tournament team.
Yeah.
But you had all those injuries the year before, right? Basically Dawkins' first year with the program, first full year, and and so that was supposed to be a back-to-back championship team, because you had Aubrey Dawkins go down right before the season started and all that. So yes, there's been a lot of inconsistency, something that needs to be cleaned up. It's a difficult road nowadays in college athletics in general, especially in college basketball. You only get 5 players on the court for your team at a time. And that's a good thing in the sense that if you get one good player like Taylor Hendricks did, like you can make a big difference, right? But it's sometimes a bad thing, because if one of those big time players goes down, you're left with a pretty big hole in your roster. And I didn't love the way that Taylor was used last year. I thought that he should have caught the ball in space more, should have been given more freedom to create with the ball in his hands in the middle of the floor more often than he was. I feel like they started to figure that out towards the end of the season, but it was almost too late at that time. And so with a player like that coming through the program and being a lottery pick and having that example, I think that hopefully that begets more of those types of players in the future. And because you can point to it and say we actually did that. We actually, brought him in and he became a top, a lottery pick. But I think that in the future, when we get special players like that, I'm hoping that the system will be able to allow itself to really, really let that player shine. Because Taylor, as amazing as he was last season, I feel like he could have been even better for our team.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt. Kind of a final question here, unless the guys have any questions. We start off the season with a fairly easy schedule. I don't want to call any win easy, because it's not, but there's a path to starting out maybe like 10-2. They face, number 13 Miami in the second game, and they have a game against Ole Miss that, may be tough. But then once you get into conference play right off the bat, it's Kansas State and Kansas. facing the number one team in the country. But what should the expectations for the conference season? I mean, is it fair to think they maybe don't even win a single game in the conference, or maybe they beat someone like BYU or Cincy? I mean, what should be, I know people don't like to throw out predictions or win-loss totals, but I mean, what can be a fair expectations for the Big 12 season?
I think that at the end of the day, if we don't win a single conference game, it'd be a huge disappointment. I don't care how good the conference is. It's a huge disappointment if we go over in the conference. I think it's just what you want to see is them competing in every game. I don't care who we're playing, right? Like them competing in every game and being up for every game and playing together. And in certain teams, like you mentioned, Cincy, BYU, I would argue Oklahoma, and a few others, like you should be able to get over the hump against a few of those teams, right? Do I think that we're going to have more than about 4 wins in conference? I would be a little surprised, which is it just hurts my heart to say. I mean, before the season even started, it just hurts me as a UCF basketball alum.
Look at the conference.
It's just so
Ben,
sad,
we get it, Ben. Before me and Alan were like, as non-biased analysts, we're like, where they're going to struggle. But as fans, we're like, of course we're going to win every game,
Yeah, we're like, oh, yeah, we're going to go undefeated. We're going to beat Kansas game 1, baby. Let's do it. But, I mean, we're, we're starting to, like you said, we're starting out at Kansas State, and Kansas is just, first home game in the Big 12 they're probably going to be undefeated, number 1 team in the country, it's like, we talked about the transfer portal. It's like Kansas, they're number 1. I'm pretty sure they were the number 1 overall seed going into the tournament last season, and they get the best player in the Big Ten to just come on over, like Hunter Dickinson, like he's probably going to be the national player of the year this year, and they're just like, oh yeah, cool, I'll just reload that way, and
right.
And he, man, that Michigan, I mean, he has torn us up in the past, and so. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough road. There's no denying that. But like you said, I think expecting us to pull out about 3 to 4 wins in this conference, I don't think are necessarily unreasonable expectations. Because, I mean, we were able to pull out, like, honestly, we were able to pull out that great win against Oklahoma State in the Bahamas last year. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be ready to get that revenge this season.
Yeah.
But you saw it in a game like that. I mean, even you saw it like 2 years ago it was like during the winter break when we played Oklahoma at home. It was like a Saturday game at like 2:00 in the afternoon or whatever.
And South Florida, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
so. That one was actually at home against Oklahoma, but
that's right. Yeah,
a couple years ago. But we played them really tough, and we wound up losing at the end there. But that's the thing. It's like you would expect us to be in a good amount of these games in the second half, and the hope is that you can pull out about 3 or 4 of them, and just show that the team is working towards something, right? And what is that something when you've got a bunch of transfers that are 5th-year guys, and that that's their last hurrah with the team. It's about building a program and seeing what we can do as we move forward in the Big 12. As we get the resources, hopefully we'll continue to move forward. But I don't want to look ahead too far. I want to enjoy this season. I hope UCF fans really enjoy this season, and I feel like this team with the types of players that we have coming in here, and hopefully them all fitting together well. I think they're going to give us a few surprises, and I hope I'm right about that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, at this point, the basketball program may get more conference wins than the football program this year in conference. So.
Man, yeah, I guess that's certainly a possibility at this point. Man, I never thought I'd be saying that, come early or late October, but it's been a tough one.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on. That was great insight about the UCF hoops team. And either way, even if we, don't have a great season, it's gonna be really exciting to start playing teams like Kansas and Baylor on the basketball court. It's gonna be really cool to see that on our home court there. So Ben, we appreciate you joining, taking your time, and giving us some great insight on the basketball program.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and yeah, let's definitely do this again during the season, and we'll check in, and hopefully we'll talk about some UCF wins here.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, have a good one, Ben.
Thank you.
All right, that was former UCF basketball center Ben Stout giving us some insight into the 23-24 UCF basketball team. All right, guys. Now it's time to get into UCF football talk, which isn't much more promising right now. But
we might as well keep talking about basketball and baseball. We might as well just keep on looking.
Listen, I have the collar on, but they're dancers. I'm going more NCAA. I just know not. Yeah, I'm wishing and hoping.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be a pretty one, but let's get into it. So we're going to review, obviously, the West Virginia loss. We're going to get into the Cincy preview, but let's start off with some text talk, as we do every podcast, our text talk segment from the West Virginia game. And Josh, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So right now we have so let me set this up for everyone. So I was not in town for Text Talk. I was out in a farm in the Midwest, I would say, and it was a wonderful time and hanging out with some family and friends. And I've been to this farm before. Actually, the last time I was there was also on a game weekend, although it was an away game. And I got to be looking at my phone instead of looking at my family, watching the Pitt special, right? So that was phenomenal. So I was hopefully going there to try to take care of some things and maybe reverse the Twins and whatever. But yeah, I had a couple things going on, and it was amazing. So a couple of things that I had. I'm going to stay off the phone for the second half. My guess, we score first, take a lead in the third, and pull away in the fourth. Yeah, it didn't happen. Didn't happen. That was bad. So I also said, talking about this, I was at this farm during the Pitt special, so I'm hoping to reverse the trend, which obviously didn't happen. So that was some wonderful things going on in the text chat while I was watching most of the game, but not all of it. Tried not to watch the second half, and it's probably good I didn't.
Yeah, probably. All right, Trey, what do you got?
Yeah, mine was when Josh said earlier, he was like, and Trey is silent, so he's probably fuming. Absolutely right. Yeah, so I was at the game. So I got to see a little bit. It's different seeing it, on the sideline. I watch the guys' mannerisms. I watch, kind of like what Alan talked about, how they respond to adversity. Who's talking on the sidelines when something bad happens? Who's talking when something good happens? Because to me, that tells you about our team. It tells you about the kind of guys you have in the locker room. So, yeah, man, I was fuming, so I wasn't really texting that much. But I'll get into that a little bit later. And then my second one is not really a text. I sent a picture of me and Shaq. I thought it was pretty cool that I was able to see Shaq and actually meet him. I told him, tell Chuck to stop saying stupid stuff on TNT, and he started laughing. But yeah, I mean,
awesome.
To keep it to where guys aren't mad, because we were mad during this game. I'll lighten the mood, and maybe I can get Roger the next week to post a picture or something. But yeah, I got to meet Shaquille O'Neal, man. He's arguably a top 10 basketball player ever, and he's a fellow 7-footer like Ben. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. He's a down-to-earth guy, and he actually DJ'd a little bit before the game at the Plaza, so I thought it was pretty cool just sit and talk to him and meet him.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. And then what I had for this week was what I just think is kind of like just really sums up our seasons. We are still a couple of plays away from winning this game. I doubt we do, but we could. And that just feels like our season in a nutshell. Like we've been close in a lot of these games, been in it in the second half. and then we make some mistakes or something happens and then it blows up in our face, which has been happening pretty much feels like every week. The other one I had was that interception was insane, should have been a catch. And then he, meaning Javon Baker, kicks the ball up and it, gets a pick. I mean, that's what the second or third time that's happened this year with these insane interceptions. But we'll get into it in later on in the show. But at the end of the day, if you're a good team, you can't have 4 turnovers, even if they're crazy turnovers. It just can't happen. So that's what I had. So that is this edition of the Text Talk. So let's get into, UCF's performance in this game. Obviously, it was close through the first half, obviously, the third quarter as well. And then it kind of came tumbling down in the fourth. We had another defensive lapse. We got, I guess, kind of what I think Trey and I said for our poison pill was that the Oklahoma game was just a mirage, which it ended up seemingly was. West Virginia ran all over us for nearly 300 yards on the ground. We have 4 turnovers in the game and then another fourth quarter collapse. So pretty much exactly what's happened the last 5 games for the most part happened again. So, thoughts, my thoughts on UCF performance is just, I'm questioning everything right now, from the coaching staff to the talent to the depth. Obviously there's some encouragement that we have been able to be in every game. It's not like we're getting waxed outside of, the one Kansas game, but to see the same mistakes over and over and over again with turnovers and fourth quarter deficiencies and, struggling when it matters most is just really disheartening to see that. And it was a week where once again, we were favored to win and we don't do it. We're at home, at homecoming. We hadn't lost a conference game by double digits since 2016. So it had been 7 years since we had lost that much at home in a conference game. So it's just disappointing. It feels like the season, went from spinning out of control to it has spun out of control. And I don't know if I'm questioning if they can even win another game to this point or even get somewhat semblance of getting their season kind of back on track. And it's just been disappointing for that because, you hear Addison Williams every week say the same thing. I didn't have my guys prepared for the game. And I know that's probably just coach speak because he's not going to go up there and start slamming the players or the coaches and calling people out and having the media have a frenzy. But it's just like, all right, well, come on, let's get prepared, or what's the issue? So Trey, I'll let you start here. I mean, what was your thoughts on just the overall game and UCF's performance?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's the same issues that we had are the same. Nothing's being fixed. We said it last week. We hope this was a turning point. Even though we lost, we hope it's a turning point in the season because they came out and showed us something different. They showed us some fight. They showed us sound tackling. They showed us being able to stop the run. They showed us really good football and a formula to beat a top 10 team that ended up losing, by the same formula we had. They showed that they could do that. And we were just hoping that, bye week issues, they got them fixed and we can move forward and build on it. Well, that was 1,000% not the case, and that's what I watched. And that's truly what I was worried about. I was worried that Oklahoma's not really that kind of creative run team. They like to spread it out and throw it. They run the ball just to keep you honest, but they're not really a heavy run committed team. One of the worries we mentioned, West Virginia is a top running team, not only in the conference, but in the country. And those are the teams we've struggled with. We can't fit the run. We can't tackle. We can't do that. It opens everything up. I mean, it opened up the pass game. It opened up the quarterback run game on boots. So that's it. What really disappointed me the most, and that's kind of what I was talking with guys, were the players there's no leadership. It's easy to, rah and hype and, be a leader when everything's good, when you're scoring touchdowns, when you're up. It's so easy to do it. In that fourth quarter, me and one of my, a former guy, all we did was watch, because we were closer to the offensive side. We watched them after each possession. JRP, he didn't play well. I don't think he played. It was because necessarily of him. He had some poor decisions, obviously, but he also had some like you said, the crazy pick. But I can say he's the only one who try to get the team up. But again, how can you really get the team up when you're turning the ball over? Like nobody realistically is like, all right, man, like you try to get us up. You're the reason that we're even having this conversation. That's just the reality of it. But outside of that, nobody else would say anything. I watch linemen just sit there, 3 and outs. They come back, they sit there, and they act like they just 80 yards, 10 plays, and had a great drive. I've watched the receivers just sit there. We watched them literally just sit there after turnovers, after 3 and outs, not do anything, no leadership. And then it sucks because then you get after the game, you get on Twitter, and they're like, you see the comments of the reporters of the guys after, and they're like, oh, we're going to see what UCF's made of. No, we know exactly what you guys are made of right now. You guys do not respond to controversy. Like, you don't respond to anything that is negative. Yeah, you respond 0 to it because why does it take you 5 losses to, okay, now we're going to see what we're made of? No, we know what you were made of when you lost to Kansas State in the 4th quarter. We knew what you were made of when you blew a 28-point lead to Baylor. We knew what you were made of when Kansas was running the ball down your throat, nothing happened. Like, we know what this team's made of. The time for talking is over. Like, and I hate saying it because, again, I was in these shoes. But there's not enough guys that are dogs on this team. There's not enough guys that when something's going wrong, you need to chew into people. You need to be pissed off. It's too many times where I'm watching them just sit there, not say a single word, and they're waiting on coaches to say something. At the end of the day, the best teams that I've ever played on, from high school to college that I've ever seen, were player-led teams. We didn't need the coaches to tell us what to do. We didn't need the coaches to say, hey, this is what we're doing. We knew when we messed up, we would come to the sidelines and be like, hey, I effed up. It's my fault. I'm keeping it clean. I messed up. It's my fault. We're going to get it fixed. And guys would be like, yeah, you're right. It was your fault. But, hey, we got your back. We're going to get it fixed. Offense would even come and tell us, hey, guys, we got your back. Same thing when the offense – like, I don't see any of that. We didn't see any of that. And that's the thing that I've been worried about with this team, even dating back to last year. Who are going to be the leaders? Because you can be the most talented team in the world. We're probably going to have guys that are playing in the NFL on this team. And in a variety of different roles. But nobody stepped up as a leader. And until that happens, and we're 8 games in now, but until somebody does that, whether it even be a freshman in John Wall, it could be young guys at this point, anybody, you have to hold each other accountable. It can't be the coaches holding you accountable because you guys are grown men. You don't need coaches babying you saying, hey, this is what you did wrong. You got to fix it. No, that's not how it goes. You need guys saying, hey, we can't do this. You're missing a gap. You're missing tackles. You got to pick it up. If they have a problem with it, you guys have to hash it out with issues. I don't see enough of that. And that's really what's disappointing to me. You can't really see these kind of things watching the game unless they pan it to, the sidelines. But other than that, these guys are not doing that. They're literally just sitting there watching the game tumble away, slip out of their grasp, and they don't have a problem with it, and that's my biggest issue.
Yeah, there's. I think you hit the nail on the head. There does seem to be a lack of leadership on this team, especially when you compare it to years past. Some of the great teams we've seen at UCF, and this year, outside of JRP, who does seem like a very good leader, at least maybe not with his play all the time, but at least just with his leadership capability. But outside of that, seems to be really lacking this year, and that probably is an issue in the locker room and with the performance. All right, Josh, what are your thoughts on the loss?
I'm going to keep it brief because that's Trey's provided probably more insight than I could even handle. It felt like most of the games. Honestly, amazingly, I don't know how we came back in Boise State. Right? When Boise State was happening, we were like, oh, not again. And it didn't happen. And we were like, okay, maybe there's something different. No, that was fool's gold. It's like false fake winter when it becomes 80 degrees here in Orlando again, right? But it was 40 the other day. It was not real. It wasn't real. And if anything should, in my opinion, be able to galvanize the team, it's like almost getting a tough loss, multiple time zones away and coming out the win, you'd think, but no. And it's just disappointing. It's like the worst phrase and the worst term. It's you can't be mad, you're disappointed, and that's a very dad or parent thing. I'm just kind of disappointed at this point, and I'm you'll see that in some of the things I'm talking about later. But I'm just disappointed, and I agree with Trey. I hope someone just takes the reins and goes, forget this. We're going to go and do something different from whomever in the team. Many people here are going to be here next year. Hopefully this is not happening now and then, and trying to man up, to be frank, but just so disappointed. There was a lot of pieces that looked like it'd be decent in the first half. And obviously I tried to stay away and I didn't, and I probably should have in the second half, and it's just disappointment. That's the best way I can put it. Just disappointment.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It really is disappointing. I want to get into the individual parts of the game, but I'm curious on your guys' take on this. Is you see on social media really during this whole 5-game losing streak that the coaching staff is taking a ton of heat. There's now Gus Malzahn is clearly out of the honeymoon phase at UCF, and you have half the fan base that is saying, let's fire him. Why did we give him an extension? All that. And then you have the other, maybe a little bit more rational side of the fan base that's saying, all right, let's let him get his guys in here. Let the recruiting catch up to the Big 12 level. But how much heat should Coach Malzahn and Coach Addison Williams and Coach Hinshaw take for this? I mean, like I said, they say they don't have their guys prepared for the game. I mean, how much of this is on the coaching staff versus maybe just, they just don't have enough talent, which doesn't feel that way because they're in the game. So, Trey, I'll start with you. I mean, how much of the blame should the coaching staff shoulder for this losing streak and the same issues happening, or is it more kind of on the players?
Yeah, it's tough to pinpoint blame. I mean, I've said this, countless times on this podcast. It's hard to pinpoint it without knowing what's going on. So I can't really see through the coaches speak. When I was playing, I could see all these things and I'd be like, okay, he's speaking as a coach to take the blame. I would even do that sometimes, hey, it was my fault. I didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. And it wouldn't even be my fault. I'm the older guy. I'm going to take up for my position room. Because, some of the young guys might have messed up. Anything could have happened. You don't want them going through that. But honestly, I feel like these guys aren't like it's tough. I want to say that it's a talent issue. Because again, we're trotting out pretty much the same guys each week. I want to say that the coaches are telling them something and they just can't execute it, or they're not executing it. But it's so hard, man, because I go out there, and to me, when you say I didn't have them prepared enough, it's like that makes zero in my brain, that I can't make sense of that. If you say I made some questionable calls at this point, I did something wrong at this point, I can understand that because that's a part of the game. You're not going to make 100% the best calls all the time. And sometimes you can make every call right, but one, and that costs you. Like, I get it. So I guess it's a little bit of both. I think that maybe we do have a talent issue and it does need to catch up. But some of the stuff that we've witnessed, it's questionable. Even to last week that we talked about. Why are we calling that for 2 points game to tie, game on the line at a top 6 team? Why is that our best play call? Why is that our best that we do? So I think it's a little bit of coaching. I think it's a little bit of players. And again, we have older guys and they're playing great, but we do have a lot of young guys that are playing too. And I think, especially in the back end, and I think they're going to go through growing pains. I just think that, I don't know, man. I think it's really a 50-50 split. I wish I was inside to really know what they're asking these guys to do, and then I could tell you 100%. But again, some of the things the coaches are saying, that they are worrisome. Like, again, I didn't have my guys as best prepared. Like, that's not something you say. That almost sounds like they didn't know anything that they were supposed to be doing. They saw something completely different than they like. That's right. That doesn't make any sense to me.
But that doesn't happen every week. Like, yeah, right?
Exactly. Like it to me. Okay, we're gonna be real. What did we say, Alan, Josh, even Roger? What have we said? We know our weakness is power running, teams running the ball down our throat. If we know that's a weakness of our team, if we know our strength is in the back end where we can, tell Thornton and Brandon Adams and those guys play man cover, take away. That's our strength. Why are we not almost just loading the box and making teams throw? If we lose in the air, we lose in the air.
Yeah.
Like, why has that not been an adjustment? And again, we watch it. We see it every week. We are just getting gashed in the run game. And this is since the fourth game of the season. We've been getting gashed in the run game. So, like, to me, that's where it's like, coaches, what is so hard about what we're doing? Like, I'm that's where they lose me a little bit. And I think that's where the coaching issue is, because you haven't seen those kind of adjustments. You haven't seen those kind of, we're stopping the run at all costs. If you're going to beat us in the air, you're going to have to beat us in the air. We have not seen that adjustment yet, in my opinion. But again, the guys, they might just not be good enough. And that's a reality that we had to face in 2015. We had a lot of talented guys on the team. But even from a recruiting standpoint, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. Sometimes this situation isn't the best situation. Sometimes it just doesn't click until maybe a year, 2 years, sometimes the last year. Sometimes that's just what it is. And again, it took 2 years' time to get another influx of talents of that 2016 Mackenzie Milton, Adrian Killens, Gabe Davis. A lot of those guys were a part of that building block. We were more so, we were talented guys in our own right, but we were the guys that kept it together. We've been through the mud. We've been through nobody in the fans. I don't think there's enough of that either with these guys. Again, I referenced my time back in Nebraska that I always thought was a problem. We were 0-6 and we were selling out the stadium. When we were, I used to tell those guys, man, we were 0-12 at UCF. Nobody's coming to these games. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, the mentality is different. Like, if you are being supported and you're playing like trash, what makes you want to change how you're playing? Like, that made us want to change. Like, we're so horrible. And then they come back game one of next year and everybody's there like, okay, we got to keep winning because we love this. Like, we haven't seen this in a year. Like, it's almost getting to that point to me, like, looking back. Why are you guys complaining about the student section? I know there's people on our team complaining about, oh, the fans aren't packed. You guys are not playing deserve any fans. Like, we're not playing at a level right now where people should pay money. People should come and watch this team play. That's just the reality of it. And again, as supporting fans, we want to do it, of course. But as a former guy who has seen the worst of the worst, who put in a little bit to make it to where it's at now, it's disappointing that that's what guys are worried about. It's disappointing that you see that on the sideline. So, sorry, I got off the topic a little bit.
No.
Again, I
Good
think
rant. Good rant.
I do think that it could be 50-50. I think it's some players, and there's things that the coaches are saying that they are worrisome if you haven't prepared your guys to the best. I don't know. I could count on my fingers how many times that happened in games where we weren't the best, like Coach Frost, those first 2 years. I could count on my fingers how many times we weren't, prepared. We were always prepared. It was just a matter of us executing. That's two different things.
Yeah.
So Trey, I have a question because it kind of goes to my answer to this. Do you ever think in times in 2017 that Mackenzie covered up deficiencies in the offense or defense with the level of play he was at, where if it was anyone else or with any different lower level than him, that some of those things would have been widely exposed?
Absolutely. That's in this age of football, the quarterback, if you have a great quarterback, you can cover up so many issues. Granted, we had a great quarterback and we had very small holes on our team. But in times where our defense was struggling, our defense had lapses, we always knew we have the best quarterback in the country, of part of the best offense in the country with some of the best players in the country. And at the time, we thought the best play caller in the country. So there's a confidence that brews with that. There's like the whole motto was no fear of failure. We didn't care if we gave up 20 points. We didn't care if we missed tackles. We didn't care if we gave up touchdowns, because we're like, we have the guys that can match. And I don't want to put it, I guess, all on JRP in the sense because he's not Mackenzie Milton, and that's okay. There's very few people that can live up to that. I don't think Dylan Gabriel was Mackenzie Milton. I don't think he reached that kind of gravitas to carry a team on offensively.
Right.
That wasn't him. I don't think Mikey Keene was that. I don't think JRP is that. There's probably been 2 or 3 other guys, Dante and Blake, that have that kind of power of an offense. So I don't want to put it all on JRP, but it does when you look across as a guy who he's hobbled, he's hurt. So this isn't the JRP that was game 1. This isn't the JRP that is electric player. We know that. So that does play into it on defense. It plays into it on offense that the mistakes are very small. You're going to play a little bit more reserved. Yeah. But again, I don't know. It's tough decisions because to me, it's like if he can't give you that kind of gravitas, that kind of fire to spark the team offensively, you got to find the guy who does. Now, I don't know if the guy is in the building now. I don't know that. So maybe that's why they're rolling with him. But it's tough. And I do think, yes, quarterbacks can mask a lot of issues if you have them. I think perfect example was last year, Bryce Young. That Alabama team was not good. Mm-hmm. But he was obviously number 1 overall pick. He was a Heisman winner. Same thing with Caleb Williams at USC. When you have these kind of quarterbacks, they cover up so many issues because of how special they are. And we had that with McKenzie. It was just, at the time we also had great offensive receivers. We had great defensive players. Like it was a perfect storm. So I to answer your question, a great quarterback covers a lot of issues.
And I know you had something. To my point, I think so. I agree, and we've seen this throughout college sports. Period. Yep. And I think the coaches understanding what they had in the building, if you will, were over the top publicly and probably privately trying to protect JRP as much as possible. Because while I agree, he's good. When he's not injured, he is a solid, if not really good quarterback with everything he can do. And as soon as you lost that dual ability, which you have to have both in Gus's system and for him as an individual, things changed. And I believe, I think that the protection of JRP was understanding that he was going to be able to mask some of the things, like you said, maybe not everything, but mask enough to be able to have that 8-5 type of season or a darn good season. And when that went down, not only did we have issues both it seems like both team, maybe internally, perhaps as well, and Timmy tried his best, but Timmy wasn't it either. Yeah. And maybe he will be, and I hope he is. And maybe he'll go off to another team and do really well like every other quarterback from UCF does. And maybe he'll make another step next year. Who knows? But the reality is that there was a reason the coaching staff were trying to protect JRP as much as they were. And I don't think it was just, we want you healthy the entire season.
Yeah.
So how much blame does the coaching staff deserve? They have to be a piece of it, right? They're not the ones on the field causing 4 turnovers, but having multiple turnovers in multiple games. They're not on the field playing, but they're certainly trying to get the most out of those that are. So I don't know yet. And to your point, Trey, I don't know if the wait till we get the recruits is really a great idea too. I mean, I agree. When we keep this awesome class, they see where the opportunities are. They'll be able to be coming in darn quickly and taking over spots or pretty soon, like John Walker has, right? And others have as well. I mean, Kai Martinez from last year to this, right?
Braden Marshall this year, he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, so there's lots of – anyone who's a recruit can see there are opportunities on this team. And even in running in the 2 deep even, right? Just to get yourself on there, maybe at 10 or 20 or 30 plays a game, depending on what you're doing. So the opportunities are there. But I don't know if we see continued experience and continued growth in the NIL era too. There's part of that, but I hope I am wrong. But to me, this feels like we need both coaching to take or hold. We need all the players we need while we're already at a disadvantage because we're not even getting the full Big 12 30+ million.
Yep.
While we're probably middle of the road NIL. It's going to be tough, but
so the staff needs to improve. You're saying like they need to maximize more.
I think
that's exactly what it is.
Yes, I think maybe one of the better things Scott Frost did was get the maximum not only effort but either pull the Trey probably knows this, pull the right levers or push the right buttons as a staff as a whole to maximize what was already a really good team. I mean, it's
that's exactly what. Again, a lot of people forget Frost wasn't reeling in these top 20 recruiting classes. It was a lot of guys who were too small, under recruited. Like Adrian Killens, I think he was a low 3-star kind of guy. Mackenzie Milton, low 3-star kind of guy. Otis Anderson, like he might have gotten one big one. I think Snelson was a big guy. I think Gabe Davis was a big guy. Yeah. But like these guys weren't these highly sought after recruits. They weren't these highly big time guys that we're getting now. So it's almost like, how are we able to maximize? Like that's a coach. Like to me, that like you're speaking, that's a coaching lack. Coaches should not only be able to, and again, I think Gus is a great recruiter. I mean, even when I was in high school, Gus Malzahn can recruit his butt off. He speaks the right things to guys. He says the right things, and guys love hearing that. And that's a part of being a great coach. But what has always been lacking since even when I was in high school was, does he maximize the potential of his players? Does he fully develop the guys?
That's a big knock on him.
That is. And the thing is, you can get for example, you can get the high level 4-star guys. If they're only tapping into 75% of their potential, 65% of their potential, they're average guys. They're just they're another guy. So it's going to be a bigger disappointment. But when you have the low level 3-stars performing at all conference level, all American type of level, that's what you need. That's the most important thing because that's the product on the field. And even Coach O'Leary was amazing at that. Like a lot of the guys I played with were 2-stars, 3-stars, and he maximizes them. Like that's, to me, yes, recruiting is extremely important. You got to get the best guys in there. But if you can't get the most out of them, whether two different styles, O'Leary was very hard. Like, I'm going to work it out of you. You're going to grind it out. With the Frost, who was, listen, I want you to play free, play loose, play with fun and excitement. That's how he got a lot of those guys the best out of them. There's got to be some kind of way to do it. And I don't know what Gus is doing. Like, I haven't seen the full product yet, and there's a lot of questionable things that have happened. But again, that's going to be the hard part for me, and I think that's where people are kind of frustrated with that are like, because I don't think he should be fired. But I do think there's going to be a reality we're going to see within the next, probably, this year and next year, what's going to be our ceiling? What is truly our ceiling with Gus? And I think that's what we're going to have to evaluate. If our ceiling is 8-4 every year, 9-4 with every, 3-4 years, once a recruiting class, challenging for a conference title. If that's what we want as a fan, if that's what, the AD season, that's what they want, I think Gus is perfect for that. I think he's always going to field a competitive, once he gets his guys, he'll field a competitive team, but we're never going to reach that pinnacle that I thought we would get to, when I was playing. We always wanted this opportunity because we were like, we could be a perennial top 15, top 10 program in the country because we're literally in the middle of Orlando. We can get everybody from the state of Florida, which is probably number one, if not number two, the best recruits in the entire country. So like the visions we saw as guys before me, as guys that I played with, we always thought we could be a top 10, 15 program. 8-4 is not going to get you that. 8-4 is fringe, top 25. Like that, I don't know. And that's where I think, I don't know if Gus is the guy. I don't know if this coaching staff is the guy. And it's not calling them out. That's just the reality of it. I just don't think that might not be it. But we're going to see, I think, again, next year and maybe another year, you're going to see what it is. Just like I said earlier, we know what you guys are as far as the players. Like, you've shown us what you are. So far, Gus has shown us what he is. He's a guy who very exciting in the recruiting trail, builds a lot of excitement on the program, but maybe we don't maximize our play on the field. And if that's what – I know that's not what Night Nation wants, obviously, because that's not what I want. But if that's what the AD thinks is best, then that might be our ceiling for now.
Yeah. I mean, my kind of final thoughts, I think that was great insight. My thing is, I do think it's a little too early to fully judge the staff until they get all these 4 stars in and it really does catch up. But my thing is, I kind of take the 50-50 approach where, I think the coaching staff is to blame a lot here because they aren't maximizing guys that there is talent on this team. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there's going to be some NFL players, like you said. So the coaching staff is to blame. But on the flip side, why I think the recruiting is so important in all this is unless the coaching staff is just super stubborn right now, we do not play any depth whatsoever. Like,
at all.
I've never seen a UCF. Like, I remember in the Frost era, I mean, you had 4th and 5th wide receivers, at least rotate. Like, Marlon Williams was rotating in, even though he wasn't playing until later on in his career. Like, guys like that. Right now with Xavier Townsend, they're literally playing like 2 receivers. And like, you had Jared Baker come in. But the starters, that's all that plays. The UCF football team right now reminds me of a playoff basketball team where the rotation shortened and it's like 7 or 8 guys.
Exactly.
Like, that's what it reminds me of. They don't play anyone else. And to me, with the injuries that we have, we just lost 2 guys for the year with Townsend banged up, with JRP banged up. To me, that shows that they don't have faith in the guys behind them or they're going to be playing them. So the talent is an issue, I think. But I also do say, like, hey, the starters are keeping us in the game, so there must be some talent there. We just can't close. So it's a talent issue, but it's more on the depth side of things. And everyone said, and everyone I've ever talked to, former players like you, Trey, they always say the biggest thing that separates a Power 5 from a Group of 5 is the depth. And so I think that's a huge issue right now. But it's still things like blowing a 35-7 lead. That's like
not a talent.
And I also think a big part of this is the negative momentum has really added up. You know what I mean?
And see, that's where I spoke earlier. That's where leadership happens. There were countless times where negative things happened, in my time at UCF. Every single time the leaders of the team, that is the time you step up. You don't do it when you're up 35-7. Everybody's having a good time. The fans are having a good time. Everybody is. It's when you see that negative momentum start happening. That's when the leaders, you put a halt to it, whether sometimes you have to be verbal and confrontational. Sometimes you just have to be like, look, man, it's all good. Like, I see none of that from any of them, And again, the only one I did see, and I'm going to give him credit, was JRP. But it does matter who it's coming from. It's hard when you have 5 turnovers to try to tell me everything is okay. It's like, dude, look in the mirror. The reason, that's just the reality of it. But like you're saying, Alan, the negative momentum is why that's an issue. And even going to, like you're saying, with the depth, man, that I hate always going to that 2017 team. So, but even the 2013 and 14 team.
Oh yeah.
The depth behind when Josh Reese is your 5th receiver, you have a very good receiving room. Again, when Richie Grant and Causey, when those are your 4th, 5th kind of safeties and corners, you have a very good defensive room. When you can go 4 deep at linebacker, you go 6, 7, 8 deep.
And we can't do that now. None of those guys even play. We don't even know if they're good because they don't play.
That's the thing. Like, we knew back then, our 2s could be 1s. Some of our 3s could be 1. Like, that's the kind of depth, and we would show it. Like, we would go out, dominate, even in the midst of those games. Hey, you going right here, you going right here. So many packages because we had to get the talent on the field. We do not see that anywhere. I mean, like you alluded to on offense, when healthy, it's Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson, Xavier Townsend. That's it. Alec Holler and Pittman a little bit, but that's it. It's really from the beginning of the year, I thought we were going to have this super deep running back room. Well, all I see is RJ Harvey and Johnny Richardson. I don't see anybody else.
And they're banged up too. So what happened to this all-star cast of running backs?
Exactly. Like, that's what's even more frustrating because it almost seems like we're being fed lies in the preseason, and then everything's being unfolded in the game. It's like, where's this 6 depth of running backs? And I know they're probably frustrated too. Like, coach, put me in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. So, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, Alan, I think a lot of it is that negative momentum.
Yeah, it's clearly added up, and it's going to be woulda, shoulda, coulda, but it would have been really interesting if we would have won that Baylor game. It'd be interesting to see where our season was at right now. I mean, I think that a chemistry of a team and just the vibe can really permeate a whole locker room, and maybe it did contribute to these losses, and it just keeps adding and adding up. It would have been, if we would have won that game, I think there's a chance right now where we're over 500. Maybe not, but I think there's a chance. So
4-4, 5-3. I completely agree.
Right. So so a lot of things have just basically gone wrong this year, unfortunately. But so let's keep moving on here. I think we don't really need to talk about, I have a segment here about the defense, but I mean, at this point, the run defense, what else is there to say? It's bad. I mean,
you can't stop the run. You're not going to stop anything. I mean, nothing's changed since week 4. Same run fits or issues. Guys aren't physical. If that doesn't change, it doesn't matter who we play. If they run the ball with any consistency, we're going to struggle. So,
exactly. So let's move on to the offense. And Josh, I'll start with you. I think we saw that the Knights moved the ball pretty effectively for a good portion of the game. We actually even outgained West Virginia in total yards. And they weren't having trouble moving the ball. We saw this same thing in every game, even the Kansas game. They were moving the ball for a good portion of the game. But then, we get outscored 17-7 in the fourth quarter, and you have the 4 turnovers. But overall, I mean, the offense put up 28, probably left 14 points on the board if it weren't for the turnovers, maybe 21. So what were your thoughts on the offense?
So I'll just start with the first half because I watched most of that and I was attempting to get rid of the second half out of my brain. So I liked a lot of what I saw. It wasn't really that, it wasn't that bad. It's just the offense has to be, again, we'll use Frost again. It has to be that level to overcome all the other things that are also happening on offense and defense. And so, little plays here and there end up snowballing downhill, if you will. And from there, you also have this mentality issue that seems to be an issue from what Trey is observing and for what we're seeing, as fans, right? That fight is just not there. It's just not there. And even, I mean, and let's just talk about the end of the Oklahoma game, right? At the end of the Oklahoma game, it felt like that was happening. The last time we really saw that level of fight was at Boise State, but that's game 2. So, offensively, it could be as good as possible, but if our turnover ratio is negative in any single way, it'll probably be negative period as towards forget the offense, just the entire team, right? So there are pieces there that are great, and maybe Pittman steps up a little bit more, or Holler gets back into a groove, or something. But yeah, right, it's the Baker and Kobe show, or one of the Bakers and Kobe show, and it's the RJ Harvey and maybe sometimes Johnny Richardson show, and where's Bowman and everyone else. So it's good, but overall, I feel like the team just can't get out of its own way in so many times. So good, but there's still so many issues and pieces and puzzles everywhere else. It's just like, it's probably, I'll be truthful, probably good enough to win maybe 1 or 2 games if we can cause the havoc on the other side that people have been doing to us on most of the season.
Yeah, good point. Trey, what your thoughts on the offense? Then just we'll also segue a little bit into JRP. Thoughts on his performance. Obviously, he did have the 4 turnovers. The fumble was his fault, but there's maybe 2 interceptions there that aren't quite his fault, with the bounce off the Javon's toe, and then I think there was one where I think it was Baker or maybe Hudson tripped and slipped and missed the route there. So thoughts on the offense and JRP?
Yeah, I mean, I I think it goes back to the maximizing the talent. I think this offense, name on paper, we should be a top, a elite offense. We have a returning quarterback. We have all these weapons. We have, great running backs, great tight end. On paper, we shouldn't have any issues. But I think something's lacking. I don't know if it's a quarterback play. I don't know if it's the play calling with the flow. I don't know what to pinpoint it to, but we're underperforming on offense for what I thought we could be from what we showed early in the year. And again, I think the turnovers are an issue. JRP he's dynamic as a quarterback, but as far as just straight drop back passing, that's not his strength. So you take away his running, which he's still a good runner. He's just not that explosive, dynamic threat that opened everything else up. So I think when you see them just dropping back, that's not his strong suit. And at the game, he was throwing into the wind of the fourth. I think that one turnover that looked like a punt, that was him throwing into the wind. I think that's just he doesn't have a strong enough arm to drive through those kind of conditions, which some people can't. That's just what the reality of it. Because there were a couple of throws where he's stepping up, making throws, and the ball would just die. The ball would short hop the receivers. The ball would short hop the tight end. That's just what it was. But I don't know. I feel like something is missing with the offense. I feel like I don't know if they can't get everybody involved. They're conflicted on should they be run heavy? Should they be I feel like there's a conflict of interest on what they should be because Oklahoma is what I thought we should be the rest of the season. We need to be a ball control offense, running the ball that can sprinkle in JRP's, athletic ability, but also kind of get our receivers the ball in space and let them make plays, make it easy throws. But it's again, I don't know what they want to do. I thought that was the formula because I think if you could do that to a lot of teams, you could win a lot of games. But I don't know. I think offensively, that's just something is missing. I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if we need a quarterback change again. I don't know if we need a scheme adjustment. I don't know. It's just something's missing. So I think the offense is good. It's good enough to keep us in games. It's good enough to, for the most part, keep us from getting blown out every week. But I don't know if it's good enough to win us games. I think that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, that's right. It's like you said. I think it keeps us in the game. The offense is good. It's talented, but it does lag at times and lull, and it has its explosive moments. You see the plays, whether it's these massive runs by Richardson or Harvey or big gains by Kobe or Javon, but it's not enough because whether these guys are getting tired or it's just not enough guys that you can rely on each series and each play. But yeah, the offense is probably the reason that we're in games though.
They're the reason we're 3-5. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's the offense is keeping us afloat because they're reliable enough to, they're going to move the ball. They may not score on every time, but they're going to put you in a position where you have a chance to at least get 3, if not 6, but all right. So, I think we pretty much covered this game against West Virginia. We're moving on. Before we get into the Cincy preview, one kind of final question for you guys is, what is UCF even motivated at this point after a 5-game losing streak? Do you guys think, we asked this question, I think after the Kansas loss, do we win another game? And it's not a question, are we capable of beating a team like Houston? Because I think we can, or Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
Do we win another game though? My thoughts are, I'm not sure at this point. I think that the negative energy and the negative just vibe right now everything feels off. It feels so much like 2015,
Literally.
even though it's really nowhere near as bad as that because those games were pretty much all blowouts outside of a couple. And everything was just down in the dumps. But this kind of has that vibe where it's just everything just feels bad, like from the social media attention to just how much hype we had coming into the year for it being our first year in the Big 12, and to come out like this is the worst possible thing that could have happened. Literally, you talk about the worst thing that could have happened. The only thing worse is if we do end up going 0-9 in that first year, and you talk all the people that said we don't deserve to be in here and we couldn't play week to week with bigger teams, and it all adds up. So, Josh, do you think UCF wins another game this year?
My heart says yes, and my mind says yes. I think so. I think so. And it's not just being optimistic. I think so. I think so. Now, how many more? I don't know. But one more, I hope so.
Okay. Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Josh. I think, my heart is like, of course, but
Yeah.
what
That's the hard thing.
yeah, exactly. But like again, what I saw with my eyes last week, it's like the only way we can win is if we're blowing a team out and they don't make a comeback, because I don't see this team being able to deal with adversity. I haven't seen it. I don't see it. I don't see the leadership that takes to win those kind of games, because that's what it does to win those games. It's the leadership. It's dealing with adversity, and I don't see it. So I guess we win a game because we beat like a Houston, who's I don't think is very good, but like if we get down to Houston, I'm not going to say we're going to come back. Like, I don't think we can do it. That's just the reality of it. If we get down to Cincy this week, I don't think we can come back, because I don't think the mentality of the guys are there. And I think that's the issue. So my heart, of course, like I don't think if you can play with Oklahoma, you can play with everybody. That's what we said last week. I think we could beat a lot of teams, but realistically.
So why were we winning? We all know that the coaches can't be that. The coaches probably know that. Why aren't we just trying to at least get the ball? Like when we win the coin toss, we've been deferring and taking the ball different times in different ways. Why aren't we just taking the ball, especially at home?
I don't know, because the thing about the coin toss that's very unique to me, is it instills confidence in somebody, and it can take away confidence from somebody. When we played with Frost, we knew if we won that coin toss, most of the time we're getting the ball, because we're setting the tone offensively. Like, hey, if y'all cannot score with us, you're not going to win the game. I think that's the mentality we had. But there were times where they would be like, defense, you're out there first. And it was like Coach Frost is like, okay, he wants the defense to set the tone. We're going to go out there and set the tone. I don't see that with these guys. Like, I feel like at this point with the defense, they need to go out there and be like, we need to set the tone. They're not doing it. So, hey, if our offense is the best part of our team, we need to go out there and just go, hey, we're about to chew this clock. We're going to be methodical, and we're going to score. And, we're going to make this a shootout in a sense. But it's not going to be 50 points. We're just going to chew the clock. We're going to limit your possessions. Like, I don't know. I think that's what they should do going forward, because if we defer, teams are just going to be like, okay, we're going to run the ball, chew the ball. That's what they're doing. Like, that's all teams are doing. And that demoralizes you, because now you're putting so much pressure on the offense to match. And if they don't, now you're playing in the hole. You're playing from behind. And that puts pressure on it. So in my opinion, hey, if you're going to want to put pressure, we need to put pressure on them first. Like, we need to be the aggressors in that sense. So I agree with you, Josh. I think we should just take the ball from here on out. We take the ball and try to set the tone offensively early. And whatever defense we get, hey,
it's what we get.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, well, we've cried our mountain tears away. So let's get into the next game, which is this Saturday. We're playing an old foe here, Cincinnati, our first matchup against a incoming team instead of a hateful 8 team here. Going against Cincinnati, we are currently favored again. For some reason, UCF is favored. Feels like we've been favored in every game besides like Oklahoma.
Yeah,
right. But we're favored by 4.5. It is at Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is arguably the only team, or is the only team that's more down in the dumps than us. They are currently 2-6. On a 6-game losing streak. Their last win was in week 2 against Pitt, and they're also the only other winless team in the Big 12 along with us. So you talk about a game where you could end the losing streak. I mean, both teams at this point, someone's going to win this game. So someone's losing streak is ending this weekend. We're hoping it's UCF. The Bearcats are led by former Gators quarterback Emory Jones, who we know well from playing in the bowl game a couple years ago. They're unfortunately though they are like some of the teams we've been playing recently with a very good rushing offense. They're third in the conference. They're top 6 in the country in rushing yards. So they are running the ball really well. They have like 4 guys that have rushed for over 200 yards. Their passing game is pretty towards the bottom, actually, like 4th worst in the conference. Emory Jones is doing okay, but his stats look a little bit better just because he's a dual threat guy. Yeah. He's 2nd on the team in rushing yards and I think has 3 rushing touchdowns as well. But they're not good. They're down in the dumps like we are. So, this is really the closest thing we have to a rivalry still. We had some bad blood with them in the conference, had some great battles with them in the American. So it is kind of cool playing an old foe after playing all these new guys. But let's preview this game. So, Trey, since you were already on the screen before, what are your thoughts going into this game against another really top rushing offense, one of the best in the country, but statistically at least?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record anytime we play these heavy running teams. If we can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day defensively. Offensively, I think, again, I think there's a formula for this team to be successful to play clean. It's the Oklahoma game. That's the perfect way versus these top teams, these Big 12 kind of teams, this Power 5 football. We got to play ball control offense, which means running the ball effective, not turning the ball over. And on defense, we're going to have to stop the run. If we can't do that, we're going to struggle. We could lose to Cincinnati because, again, they will run the football. They're very good at running the football. With Emory Jones, he's a dual threat guy, and their other running back who, like you said, I think they have 3 or 4 rushers over 200 yards. So they're going to try to run the football. I think we all know what Emory Jones is now. Even when he was at Florida, and even now, he's not going to kill you in the pass game. He's just a dual threat kind of guy who can make plays with his feet. Otherwise, he's pretty much just a game manager. So yeah, I mean, if we can't stop the run, it will be very similar to these last 5 games that we've played that we're not going to be able to stop anybody. And if we turn the ball over, we're going to lose. If you give both of those things, we're going to lose. If we have any chance, we can't turn the ball over, and we have to at least be able to slow down the run. If we can't stop it, we have to slow it down some kind of way, whether that's just putting everybody in the box and saying throw it, or it's just a new scheme they implement something. But we cannot just let teams run the ball down our throat, and we can't just have turnovers. As much as these turnovers, to me, like the one where he kicks the ball up, yes, that's very inconvenient, but catch the football. Like you are a wide receiver. Right. I get it. It's a tough catch. It wasn't such a tough catch to where it would have been the catch of a century. It wasn't that hard. I've seen plenty of guys make that exact catch that played at that stadium. If you want to be great, if you want to be this NFL level guy that people, that we say that we are producing, those are the kind of plays they make. Those are the plays you have to make. You can't just make the ones that are thrown right to you. That's anybody can go out there and do that. So I think if we're going to win, can't turn the ball over, got to run the ball, play ball control, and stop the run.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, thoughts on Cincinnati?
So it's a weird game, and I'd say that for a couple of reasons. Cincinnati is pretty good for a while, right? Coaching changed that a little bit, but they've been good for a little while. They go in, first game, beat Eastern Kentucky, and just beat them like we beat Kent State. Next game, they go and they beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and they beat them soundly. I mean, Pittsburgh, the box score doesn't quite tell all the tale because Pittsburgh scored 14 in the 4th quarter, so they're 2-0, and they get home to Miami of Ohio, and they lose. And from there, like that spiral, like they're playing good teams, not world beaters, but good teams, and they're playing them tight. They're losing by a little bit, but they're still losing, and then they get slobber knocked at Oklahoma State. So this is just a very, very interesting and weird team. And so are we, right? We beat Kent State thoroughly. We have a really close win on the road. We play, Villanova, right? It looks like we should beat some teams, and we just fall apart. It feels like we're like two Spider-Man staring at each other like the meme almost, except for we used to be able to run, can't as much anymore, and they still can run, but Emory Jones is doing Emory Jones stuff. And he might not even be the quarterback next week. So,
might not. Yeah.
Right? So I don't know what we're going to get from either side. And I feel like we had the Oklahoma UCF because they weren't as run heavy, right? That was a piece of it. Trey's alluding to that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
even with that, I mean, I was at that game. There was fight. There was like, I wish we would have done a couple of other things with plays. And Oklahoma is a darn good team. Don't care they lost to Kansas, right? They're a darn good team. But as we all said, my poison last week was we feel like we're playing at Kansas again. And that's kind of sort of what happened. So I don't know what to get from them. I don't know what to get with us. So that's what it is. It's like, what's going to happen? I am interested to see what's going to happen. And I have no earthly clue. I have some thoughts, but I really don't know. I can't begin to tell you, because you start off 2-0 and lose 6. You start off with 3-1 and lose the rest. Like we're just whatever. It's actually 3-0 and then lose 5.
Yeah.
Right? We all started off well and beat a team on the road, and then just hoping. I mean, we win against Cincinnati, and they're not going to a bowl game, and if they beat us, probably the same. So, yeah. That's my Cincinnati Bearcats UCF intro.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a weird game with two teams that are struggling.
That's being nice.
Yeah, both teams obviously had bigger expectations going into this year. I mean, Cincinnati still got some nice pieces. They got Corey Kinner, who's their running back, has 642 rushing yards, and then actually their wide receiver Xavier Henderson is second in the conference in receiving yards. So they do have some decent pieces. And then I know that DN they've had for a while now, Sean Pace has been really good now for a while. So they have some guys there, but yeah, I mean, this is really the battle for the bottom here. I mean, basically, who's going to be the most embarrassed versus slightly less embarrassed is what's going on here. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the big thing in this game is, who plays a quarterback for them? Emory Jones was benched last game, and when they were getting drubbed by Oklahoma State for Brady Lynchenberg, he came in, he had 48 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers. I mean, it was already kind of when the game had gotten out of hand. So I don't know, if that really said much, but from looking at Twitter and everything, all the Bearcat fans apparently want him in over Emory Jones. But, generally that usually most people want the backup in when the starter is not playing well. So we'll see. They're defensively, Cincinnati's pretty middle of the row statistically. Their passing defense is towards the bottom, and their run defense is actually like top 4, top 5 in the conference. So they've had some okay stuff statistically, and they're, been in some games. They got really close in a few of those. The Baylor game was a really close game for them, and they only lost to Oklahoma by 14. So, but then, obviously then last week they got absolutely blown out by Oklahoma State, but they're generally a pretty good home team. But I think, at this point, both, just teams are really down right now. So who can kind of pick up their team and, push them to this victory. But, I've been saying this for several weeks now. I feel like, hey, this is the week UCF breaks through. But at this point, it's hard to say. But if there is any team that I'd want to play right now to hopefully get that first win, it would probably in the conference, it would probably be either Cincinnati or Houston, right?
Yep. Agreed.
All right.
That sounds about right.
All right, well, Trey, it is your time to get on here and yell out the cloud. I mean, I feel like you've kind of already done that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like now I'm just beating the dead horse. It's the same thing. I don't think the guys have that fight. When adversity hits, they fold. And I think that's what determines the best football teams that I played on, the best ones I've seen. When that adversity hit, you almost want to rise up another level. You want to take your game to another level. And I don't see that with these guys. I think these guys, they're front runners. Not to talk bad about them, but I think when things are going good, they're flashy, they're explosive, they have fun. But I think the second any kind of adversity hits, they fold and then they go with it, and it's a compiling thing. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I think we saw that with Baylor. I think that's where I first saw the issue happen. It got worse and worse, and then as we've seen with every other game, that's just what happens. So yeah, that's I'm not even at this point. There's really nothing to yell about. We've yelled at the coaches this year. We've yelled at the players. We've yelled at play calling. I've yelled at everything. I don't know if unless there's something new that they can bring up for me to yell at next week, there's going to be the same kind of things. And it's almost now I'm just tired of yelling about it because
it's at this point, what's the point?
Yeah, it's not getting fixed. Obviously, they either don't care enough. They're worried about the wrong things. So what's the point?
All right, well, then we'll get into my oxymoronic stats of the week. I do have some good ones. I thought this was pretty interesting. So right now, there are 59 teams in the country in FBS that are averaging 400 yards or more per game. And both UCF and Cincinnati are one of them. But Cincy is the only team in the country that's averaging 400 yards or more, but averaging 25 points or less a game. The only team out of 59. So they are moving the ball, but they really cannot score. I mean, they're averaging like I said, 25 points a game. So that's making them the only team, obviously. And then they're the only team in the Big 12 with that number as well, with 400 plus yards and 25 points or less. And they're sixth in the conference in yards, but somehow fourth least in points. And then they're sixth in the country, like I said earlier, in rushing yards, but they have the sixth least rushing touchdowns in the country. So they are moving the ball, in the middle of the field and between the 20s, but they are not scoring in the red zone or just not scoring in general. I think they only have like 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. So pretty crazy that they can't punch the ball in. They have the second worst passing defense in the conference, but the fourth best rushing D. And then the final stat I'll bring is their kicker. Thought this was pretty interesting. He's 6 of 7 from kicks of 39 yards or more, which includes 3 that are 40 plus and 1 that's 50 plus. But he's 5 of 7 from 20 from 20 to 29 yards. So overall, I mean, he's only missed 3 field goals, but 2 out of the 3 were from 20 to 29 yards.
Chip shots.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Chip shots. So those are my stats of the week, which means time to move on to Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week.
Sometimes, but this one might be fun. I don't know if it's going to be funny, but it'll be fun. So it ties into UCF, but let's start off with a little bit with Cincinnati. Fun fact that Cincinnati, maybe not a fun fact for Bearcats fans. Fun fact, Cincinnati's lost 4 games at Nippert Stadium this year and has no FBS wins. When's the last time Cincinnati has had 4 losses at Nippert Stadium?
2017?
2017, Trey, right off the bat.
That's when we blew them out of the water.
Yeah.
Here's two fun facts that are UCF based off of this. There's a 2017 that UCF played against Cincinnati. What quarter did that game end in?
Third quarter.
The third quarter.
Delay.
That delay when we were up like 56-14. And who had the most solo tackles in that game?
Let's go Pat Jasinski.
Yeah, I'd say Pat.
Was a beast that game, had the most tackles for loss with 1.5, but no, not the most solo tackles.
Quan Burkett.
Nope.
Shaquem.
Nope.
Kalia Davis. Or no, he was
This should be an easy one.
How about
Tristan Hill.
Jemias Pittman?
Nope.
If you think I do not remember me. Did I lead the league that game?
You led with the
that.
most solo tackles. Pat
Man, we
Jasinski had the
walked
most
over the
football.
obvious there.
I was trying.
don't
Most
even
solo
remember.
tackles in the game was Trey Neal with 4 solo tackles. No, Pat Jasinski had the most total and had 1 tackle for loss, -2 yards, tied with a million other people with tackles for losses. Yeah. Pat had 1.5. I couldn't give you both of those, but yes, our own Trey Neal had the most solo tackles in that game at 2017 versus Cincinnati.
Nice. All right, Josh. Awesome. All right, so let's before we get into the final few segments here, let's do the Big 12 recap from last week, which was another week where the Big 12 kind of just ate itself alive, and a lot of, I guess, some expected wins, but definitely some interesting ones as well. So outside of our game, obviously the big upset of the weekend was Kansas took down number 6 Oklahoma and pretty much ended any chance for the Big 12 to have a playoff team unless Texas maybe, I guess, sneaks back. Yeah, maybe they win out and sneak in there, and they need other people to lose, like you said, Trey. So Oklahoma lost 38-33, ending their perfect season. Classic Kansas, just to do a random upset like that. Then you had Kansas State beat Houston 41-0. So at least we have that going for us. We didn't get shut out by Kansas State. Texas beat BYU 35-6. And Iowa State beat Baylor 30-18. And then Oklahoma State absolutely destroyed Cincinnati 45-13. And the new guys went 0-4 this weekend. So another bad weekend for the new teams. So like I said, no undefeated teams left in the Big 12. And you have Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Texas and Kansas State all at 4-1. So right now, you have 5 teams that have the best record, tied for the best record in conference play, and then OU and Texas have the best overall record at 7-1. But depending on how some things shake out, it's not a guarantee it's going to be OU versus Texas in the conference championship. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out there. All right. Let's get into the other UCF sports updates. Josh, if you want to tackle that.
Absolutely. So we have UCF men's soccer. They're still the number 1 team in the nation. They beat Georgia State in a tight one, 5-2. That was almost an old score. That's 3-2. And the 5 that was popping in my mind, I believe they have at least 5 straight wins. And some of the tickers, you see the W's along the line when you're looking at soccer. They have 5 W's right now. The next one is the regular conference, the final game for this conference season that is happening on Tuesday night. Might be the night you're listening to this podcast. Some great signs up at UCF when I was driving in campus right towards the stadium today. That's senior night. It's James Madison. Then we will be on to the Sun Belt Conference Championship starting on November 5th, which will be impressive with Marshall and West Virginia and us all being probably top 10 teams during that championship. So that will be wonderful. So the UCF women's soccer starts the Big 12 championship quest tonight as of this recording. And I've actually been talking about this on the side chat with the guys. And guess who just scored again? We're at 81st minute. We have Chloe, who actually scored the time I was at our live game this season. Bottom right of goal on the right foot. Chloe just scored.
Oh, we got a freeze
at the 81st minute. Right now, UCF is up. That's not me. It looks like you.
It wasn't me.
No,
it wasn't me.
It wasn't me either.
Crap, might have me.
It might have been you. So right now, UCF is live as we're recording up 3-2 with 9 minutes left, or a little less than 9 minutes left in the game. So I'm hoping they can hold on. That's actually happening in Texas versus TCU, who is right now 10-5-3. Hopefully we'll put a 6 up there. So we also have women's volleyball. They played TCU as well, back-to-back nights, beat them 3-1, then lost to them 3-1. They'll take on Houston next in back-to-back sets. So that is the Big 12 as it comes for other UCF sports.
Awesome. Well, exciting time right now for some other UCF sports, with the men's soccer team being number 1 in the country, and then conference championships about to start in multiple sports. So we'll obviously keep you guys updated on that. All right, guys, let's get into the final segment of the day, which is our Week 10 score predictions versus Cincy, plus reviewing last week's scores that we all predicted and our pick our poison. So Trey, I will start with you, but first let me actually get into what we all predicted. So I had UCF winning 34-27. Josh went a little crazy there and had UCF winning 45-27.
Right,
Trey
but
went,
flipped. Right, but flipped.
Yeah, right, but flipped. Right, exactly. Trey, you had it 34-30 and Roger 42-32. So we're all wrong, although Roger would probably disagree with me and just say it's all about whatever the score is, even though we all picked the wrong actual team. But Trey, so we're all wrong, but Trey, what do you got for your score prediction versus Cincy and your pick your poison?
Yeah, I think it could be, I'm going to go with the score I had last week. I think it's going to be 34-30. No, I'll say 34-28.
Okay.
UCF. But I'm going to be honest, again, I'll never bet against the guys just because I always want them to win. But I'm not feeling very confident. I think styles make fights. And I think this is the one that we don't, this type of style is what we struggle with. So I'm going to say we win 34-28, but, I would not be surprised if it's a complete duplicate of what we saw last week.
Fair enough.
And in my poison, I want to be different. My poison is always what's worse. I think the best thing that could happen is, that we magically were able to tackle and we can fit the run and we stop the run and then we play offense so great and no turnovers. That's going to be my poison this week, is that I'm going to change it. Every time I've said it, it ends up something happens and it comes true. So, I hope we play great sound defense. We tackle, we fit the run, we stop it. And on offense, we play great sound offense, efficient, effective, explosive, and we don't turn the ball over.
All right. Some positivity from Trey. I like it. All right, Josh, what you got?
Okay, I have my prediction. I'll do musical keys, poison, then prediction. How about that? Okay. So musical keys. I have another famous Cincinnati artist. It is not Bootsy Collins, although it really should be. Not the National. I won't let you guys pick, but it's another one that you might think, oh, I don't know them, but you do. The Isley Brothers. Okay. Isley Brothers are one of the most well-known Cincinnati band, and I think the keys to the game I sound positive, but this is a farce. It's your thing. Do what you're going to do. It's right. It's up to the team. It's beyond us at this point. And with this kind of hint of lack of accountability, sounds like what other players might be telling each other right now. I don't know. It could be. Maybe I'm wrong. We also have Fight the Power. Not that Fight the Power, but that's what it was sampled from. Fight the Power, the original Fight the Power, which might be actually what's happening in the locker room right now. I don't know, but it just kind of feels like there's just some stuff going on, and we just don't know. We're not on the team. And getting even more positivity as I give a very positive tone, but really dark feedback. Footsteps in the Dark. Now, Footsteps in the Dark is a song you all know, probably because Ice Cube sampled it. It starts off really welcoming. Are we really sure? Can a love that lasted for so long and still endure? Do I really care? Hey, let's talk about distractions going on elsewhere. This team is distracted. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that mentality. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's themselves. But you've heard it from Trey, and we've all felt it. It's something's going on. Maybe they're hearing footsteps in the dark. I don't know. So my poison this week is going to be Skyline chilling. But really, the real, and that was, I really wish Roger was on the podcast today because I know he would have guffawed at that. But the real poison is everything. Everything is poison, right? Everything. So I might well take
poison.
Right, everything. So the only thing I can do is kind of hope and kind of be on that trace. I like, oh well, like the light switch turned on, and we stuffed these guys a couple times, and hey, we don't throw an interception off of someone's helmet, off of someone's elbow, then onto someone's Adam's apple, and then right into the breadbasket of a defensive lineman for some odd reason who runs it in at 360 and scores. With all that being said, my prediction, I don't know why, but 31-21 UCF. Don't ask me. I don't think there's any way it's actually going to happen, but just like the last couple of weeks proved me wrong. It's still Cincinnati doing so poorly. Like, how can we lose this game? And that will be the drop when we lose this game.
Yep.
There's some other Cincy podcast right now that's predicting the same thing. They're like, I don't know if we're going to win, but screw it. It's 31-21 Cincinnati. All right. All right. So Josh went with 31-21. What was that?
It's like Nay Teal or something in the Cincinnati podcast.
Exactly. All right. So since Roger's in here and he gave me the 72-3 prediction last time, I'm gonna go 68-3 Cincinnati as his prediction because he's got family in Cincinnati, so that will just make him mad. So we might as well just go with it.
Exactly.
But as far as my prediction, both teams, at least UCF, we know is really bad on defense, and since he's having trouble scoring. And since he's not been good, they've been getting blown out. Both teams are in the dumpster now, but I'm feeling like a oddly low scoring game, even though both teams are pretty bad defensively. I'm just feeling like a weird, both teams are maybe trying so hard to maybe play conservatively because they both want this win and want to get the heat off their back that I don't know. I think they play not freely or anything like that. So I'm going to go 19-16 UCF.
Wow. That's super low.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just feeling like a weird low scoring game. I don't know why.
8-5 or something. Make it a baseball score or something. That's
yeah, I don't know. It just feeling like a weird low scoring game to me on the road. I don't know. I'm getting that vibe. So that's what I'm. My poison. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to just say what is Nick Saban's quote? Rat poison or whatever. I mean, it's just everything feels kind of off right now. I mean, if I had to pick one, it'd be if Emory Jones, I have no idea if he's starting, but if he is, because I don't know anything about this other quarterback, but if Emory Jones does start and he just looks like, Aaron Rodgers against us and is just running all over us for, whatever, 200 yards. And he looks somehow amazing in the pocket because our defense is so bad that it just allows him to look good. That would be my poison just because every other team has taken advantage of his weaknesses. And, for the most part, his job's been called for most of the season. So if he comes in and lights it up against us, that would be really, really disappointing for a quarterback that's had to transfer now, 3 times and hasn't really found a home anywhere. So that would be my poison. But I'm gonna, my heart's going with a narrow UCF win.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, that was another good episode. Any final thoughts that we may have missed, or anything else you want to add before we say good night?
All I can say is, for those of you who are watching, and you probably already know this, UCF is up 3-2 versus TCU with probably a few minutes left at this point. Hopefully we'll end this game as we should. And this is the quarterfinal, I believe. So the semifinal will be coming up. If we win and hold on, hopefully we should, probably we'll learn more in the next podcast. But I'm really excited to see what's going on with non-football sports, which is sad because it's been a while since we've been we're done with football. Football's on. It's probably truthfully been since 2015.
Yeah.
Right? 2016, maybe 2016 in that bowl game, but life happens, right? But it's been a while since I'm like, I don't care. I'm kind of getting that point. I will say, if we lose the Cincinnati game, we are not winning another game in the rest of the season. I think that's going to be.
I agree. I think this is the tipping point. I think and the way we lose it, if we get blown, there's going to be a problem. Like that's it. And I don't.
We don't donate enough to have any say, but I will say this might be the straw that broke the camel's back, and I hope not, but maybe.
Well, the one nice thing that you have when you're this bad is like you just start accepting that it's like over and there's nothing, there's no hope, there's nothing to play for.
We're past that curve, We're in acceptance on the downhill.
This is the game that's like, because if you win this game, it's like, oh, wait a minute, all right, we just need 2 more wins to get to a bowl game,
and you start tricking yourself, and you start convincing yourself. Hey,
and you're like, okay, Houston's an automatic win. That's 5. We just got to upset Texas Tech or Oklahoma State, and we're good.
Hey, that's possible. We'll be at home like that. Yeah.
They need to trick themselves. I agree. I think they need that. I think that they need some type of like, okay, we're not losing the rest of these, right? And I'm seeing 90 on the play clock over this soccer game, so I think we're done. I'm waiting for it to call it on the stats, but So nice. That's really all my final thoughts. Like this is final. UCF won 3-2 against TCU in Texas.
Nice.
Going to the semifinals next, which is wonderful. I just. That's why I'm wearing the dancing shirt. I'm not even wearing UCF shirt. I'm going for the dancing shirt because I'm thinking NCAAs. And if we win more than maybe the 4 games, Ben, 3 to 4 games that Ben was talking about, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Well, that's I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back next week to give our thoughts on the Cincy game. Hopefully a win. And previewing the following week. So with that, good night, everyone. Make sure to like, subscribe, and charge on.
Grind. Well, and grind. What? Seriously?